January might have delivered the biggest surprise of 2025, and that's saying something in the first month of any year. Out of nowhere, Rebel Wolves, a new studio, announced their first game, and right out of the gate, it's got insane potential and expectations. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're checking out The Blood of Dawnwalker, an immersive dark fantasy RPG being developed by the former director of The Witcher 3. Whenever you talk about iconic RPGs, The Witcher 3 is part of that conversation. It's not a question at this point, and the game has firmly cemented itself as one of the best RPGs of all time. That's why when Konrad Tomaszkiewicz, the former director of The Witcher 3 and head of production for Cyberpunk 2077, leaves CD Projekt Red to start his own company, the gaming community pays attention. At the time of making this video, the official cinematic trailer for the game has received 1.4 million views on IGN alone, and that's only one day after its official release. That is a staggering number, and while the reputation of Konrad is certainly a factor, the presentation of the game itself has clearly caught people's attention. The Blood of Dawnwalker is a single-player dark fantasy action RPG where you play as Coen. We don't know all the details, of course, but the cinematic does set up Coen's backstory. Set in the 14th century, a plague has ravaged the kingdom of Vale Sangora, located in the Carpathian Mountains. Coen is on the run from the kingdom's soldiers who are hunting down anyone touched by the plague, in this case, Coen's sister, Lunka. Seemingly cornered, a small group of vampires swoop in and start striking the soldiers down, dismembering them without necessarily killing them, at least initially. It's here, after the carnage, that the main vampire, who we come to learn is Brencis, sets a curse on Coen and then heals Lunka of the plague. After, Brencis delivers this line.
How? I am life. I am death. I am everything in between. I have been watching your little valley. Pestilence, famine, killing, blood spilled carelessly like water. Things will be different now.
This is pivotal, and after watching the official Dawnwalker reveal stream, we learn that the events of the game take place 2 years after this encounter, and Brencis and the other vampires we see in the trailer rule the valley. This is noteworthy because vampires could have easily been an external threat, one that's ever present, but that would have been the safe and expected path. Instead, the vampires are in charge, and during the stream, we learn that there are some real trade-offs to them being in power. One consequence of their rule is that they see their peasants as cattle, leading them to a degree, but ultimately using them to sustain their need for blood through special mandatory rituals. Their sheer presence also influences some of the other creatures in the areas to be more bold, including kobolds, which the developers call out specifically during the stream as another antagonistic faction. One thing we do know is that the 3 other vampires that were with Brencis during the night raid will play a crucial part in the overall gameplay, with the developers describing them as having zones of influence within the valley. My initial thought is that this will play out like Far Cry 5, where each vampire leader will hold dominance over a region of the map. You'll have to work to defeat them before ultimately taking on Brencis himself, who has been confirmed as the main antagonist in the game. How their presence influences a zone is unclear at this point, but I have to imagine they'll bring their own defining characteristics to each area under their sway. Coen will obviously face some immense challenges as he navigates Vale Sangora, but one interesting thing we learned from the developer's livestream is that he'll only have 30 days to save his family, which is clearly a primary objective. This concept of time and limitation on that time is unique in the RPG space. The developers stopped short of fully explaining the system, but did say that it wasn't a real-time system. Instead, time will progress as you're doing specific activities in the world, and that 30-day window will put pressure on you as a player to be intentional with your actions. It could also drastically change the game world, gating off certain activities or quests over the course of those 30 days. The implications are huge and could have a ripple effect that touch almost every aspect of the gameplay experience. In my mind, this is one of the areas that will end up defining the game, good or bad, and I do feel like players will either love or hate time being a factor in an RPG. But at this point, it's just a concept, nothing real, so it's not worth getting upset about, but it is worth keeping an eye on as development continues. One thing that's somewhat related is how Coen engages with the world, specifically as it relates to quests and quest-like activities. It's pretty clear the team is trying to do something different here, making questing happen more organically in the world without some of the typical structure that we've come to expect from other role-playing games, but again, it's unclear. The last detail that I thought was worth mentioning has to do with magic. Coen is a Dawnwalker, a human that can blend in with the population during the day, but takes on vampiric qualities at night. He's able to walk in two worlds, but he'll be constantly fighting his vampire tendencies, and the developers revealed that if you don't satisfy your need for blood, you could completely lose control. The example they gave was Coen suddenly succumbing to his lust for blood and killing his best friend out of nowhere. It's some shocking imagery, but also makes me believe that the devs aren't afraid of removing pieces from the board, doing away with the mentality that everything has to be accessible to everyone, no matter their choices. Now, based on a few small snippets of gameplay, the Blood of Dawnwalker is going to play like an epic action RPG. In the first clip, we see Coen perched on a rooftop high above the hamlet below. If we're climbing on rooftops, then we're looking at something akin to Assassin's Creed, which means mobility and elements of parkour. Obviously, that is a big, ambitious step up from the movement of The Witcher 3, but it makes sense given Coen's supernatural abilities. In the very next shot, we see him sliding down the side of a massive building using his hand, which we assume are claws now, given that it's nighttime, to slow down his descent. This further cements my belief that vertical movement will be a huge part of the game. The next clip showcases the first combat within Dawnwalker. A quick claw swipe across an enemy's face looks lethal, and then a short teleport ability allows Coen to close the gap with a distant enemy for another attack. During the livestream, the team said there is magic in the game, but it's more paranormal than high fantasy. It's hard to know exactly what that means, but I think it's safe to say Coen isn't going to throw out fireballs and cast ice novas. In the final clip, we see a massive construct drop in from out of frame, setting up a major conflict that feels more Dark Souls than anything we've seen in this trailer. This is huge, right? Fighting humans and vampires is one thing, but dealing with a giant mechanical walker, well, that's another thing entirely. And if the team is leaning that direction, just imagine what other enemies Coen might have to confront. We do also see him fighting with a sword here during the day, which I think is worth calling out. My final observation about the game actually comes from the final seconds of the trailer, a sweeping wide shot from a high vista overlooking the valley below. The Blood of Dawnwalker is going to be a big game, and with Conrad's experience with The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077, I have no doubt that a massive open world is not only on the table, but exactly what they're creating for this game. Obviously, there are some pitfalls with that approach to RPGs, chief among them a large, lifeless world that the developers stuffed with filler content. But it's something The Witcher 3 navigated incredibly well, so that does give me a bit of hope that Rebel Wolves can replicate that experience. Guys, if the Blood of Dawnwalker wasn't on your radar, it sure as heck should be now, and although we've only seen a cinematic trailer and just a few seconds of gameplay, this is now officially on our radar. Legacy Gaming will be covering this one come hell or high water, so if you want more information about the Blood of Dawnwalker, be sure to drop us a like and consider subscribing, as we'll follow the game's progression from now till launch. My name is Cody Akin from everyone here at Legacy Gaming. Thanks for watching, and play on.